G'day guys and gal, there is no shortages of war and battle in Warhammer 40k, it's like the main vibe of the setting. Superhumans ripping each other's spines out, titans the size of buildings blaring their horns as they turbo penetrate their enemies with their volcano guns. Millions and billions of infantry lasgunning each other's tits out underneath all of it. It makes for a pretty good time. But just how big do these battles get? It's common knowledge that GW sucks when it comes to war in numbers and scaling, with key intergalactic conquests like the Ulanor Crusade being smaller than conflicts we have had on our own humble Earth. But some battles have escaped this mathematical retardation to give us absolutely bonkers amounts of combatants, and those battles are worth talking about. Before we get started, I get it. Losing a bunch of weight and changing the Warhammer stereotype is hard. Cooking food takes too long and doesn't taste great if you aren't a chef. Ordering food is convenient but expensive and unhealthy. I bet most of you guys are just crunching high-carb snacks, and I don't blame you. There doesn't seem to be much better options. Until today! Partnering with Factor, I present to you high-quality, high-protein, great macroed, and delicious microwave meals. Microwave meals slap. You just pop them in and bam, a gourmet meal is yours with no prep or cleanup. Factor never freezes their meals, so it tastes a lot fresher than other brands, and because you're getting different meals every week, you never get sick of it. How it works is that you choose what type of food you want. Maybe high protein, maybe low carb, depends on your goal. Then Factor will send a number of microwave meals to your doorstep every week. No matter what your situation in life is, there is no reason not to pick this up. For me, I enjoy cooking myself dinner, so I'll have Factor for lunch. It makes managing my diet so easy, and I'm saving money. To save even more money, then use my linking code POG Majorkill APE50. The code will auto apply from the link, and you'll get 50% off your first box, making each meal come to around $5 each. You'd have to be an absolute goose not to at least try it. Cheers to Factor for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over the 5 largest battles in Warhammer 40k. The size of the battle won't just be determined by the amount of entities. For example, a 10,000 Titan battle would be way larger than a 1 million size infantry battle, so it won't be an exact science, but I'll do my best. I'll also be referring to battles, not wars. However, wars that do end up just being one big fuck off battle still count. Now let's get into it. We're gonna start it off with a non-Imperial or Horus Heresy battle, because I'm feeling a little bit silly today. The second battle of Craftworld Iyanden against the High Fleet Kraken. It may be surprising to see the Elder on this list of largest battles, since their population isn't exactly brimming right now, but when the population of an entire Craftworld is under threat, then that entire Craftworld becomes combatants. Is generally considered to be in the 50 million plus range based on the Craftworld's size, and other general factors. For Iyanden, which is a major Craftworld, or was, that could easily be in excess of 100 million, the vast majority of which would be more than capable of taking up arms and the role of guardian or militia. Tyranids, on the other hand, are known for their overwhelming swarm tactics, more or less always vastly outnumbering their opponents. We aren't given a proper number of the Tyranid force, but it would need to be in the high hundreds of millions to low billions to be able to swarm and overwhelm a Craftworld of 100 Eldar. Yeah, big fuck off battle. It began with a huge void engagement, as thousands of ships of the Craftworld skirmished with and destroyed a shitload of Tyranid vessels. The Craftworld ships were superior in nearly every way. However, like a slow battle of attrition, they started losing more and more ships as the High Fleet adapted to their tactics and wore them down. It was like a literal wave hitting the shore. Each one got progressively bigger and stronger until finally the Tyranids launched their first real wave, smashing through the Eldar fleet and finally landing Nids on the Craftworld. With the hive mind finally figuring out how to get onto the Eldar ship, it started spamming huge wave after wave until the Craftworld was flooded with Tyranids. There was a non-stop battle all over the ship as millions of Guardians fought alongside thousands of Aspect Warriors. There was even a number of Phoenix Lords involved, holding key points for the Eldar. The Eldar performed a massive counterattack led by its avatar of Cain, but in response, the Tyranids launched their final wave, which smashed against the Eldar and drove them back, leaving them all in small pockets of scattered resistance. The avatar was brought down when the Swarm Lord appeared and sent 12 Carnifexes to go fuck him up. It was the ultimate bitch act, but you know, it does make sense. Everything was fucked and the Elder was doomed, until their exiled Prince Uriel returned in the 11th hour with a huge Eldar Corsair fleet. He annihilated the Tyranid fleet around the ship, landed on the Craftworld, picked up a super cursed spear, and shanked the Swarm Lord through the brain with it. With the Swarm Lord dead and the fleet crushed, there was no more Tyranid Synapse creatures alive. Hence the Nids on the Cryford lost cohesion and became easy pickings for Uriel's forces and the surviving Eldar. All in all, 4/5 of the Cryford died, representing around 75 million plus dead Eldar, with High Fleet Kraken being crushed, representing hundreds of millions if not billions of dead Tyranids. Now that is a fucking battle. This removed High Fleet Kraken from the list of major threats and turned Iyanden into a ghost ship full of loose spirits and Wraithguard. Okay, fine, I'll do a Horus Heresy Space Marine Pew Pew one now. The Istvan Drop Site Massacre. In terms of number of combatants, this wasn't that big. There was like maybe 1.5 to 2 million people involved total. However, since most of these people were Space Marines and since the battle was so violent and quick that it has been forever scarred into the Imperium's soul, it's worth chatting about. When Horus declared jihad on the Emperor, he positioned the Death Guard, Emperor's Children and World Eaters with him. The Imperium sent the Iron Hands, Raven Guard and Salamanders as the first wave, who would then be supported by the Alpha Legion, Iron Warriors, Night Lords and Wordbearers. Yeah, that went well. The battle started off its nut. Basically 300,000 or so loyalists charged against 300,000 traitors. Remember, the traitors had purged about 100,000 potential loyalists from their own ranks, so each of their legions was a bit smaller. It was absolute carnage. The majority of the battle was a melee fight, with Ferrus Manus spearheading a fuck-off charge into the heart of the enemy, his hate and rage for Fulgrim driving him onwards. At this point, the rate of casualties was pretty similar. The Loyalists had all of their Primarchs deployed and cutting through the front lines, whilst the Traitors had special armor-piercing bolt rounds that were cutting down the Loyalists. However, the real spice came when the Loyalist, quotation mark, reinforcements arrived. The Loyalist Vanguard, which was the Salamanders, Raven Guard and Iron Hands, begun to pull back, other than Ferrus who was fighting Fulgrim. However, those Loyalist reinforcements were actually traitors, who waited until the Vanguard was within range, then unleashed a barrage of hundreds of thousands of bolters, killing thousands in seconds. Ferrus was then killed by Fulgrim, Vulcan was taken prisoner and Corax escaped. About 90 to 95% of the Loyalist forces were killed, with only a small Raven Guard army led by Corvus escaping, as well as a handful of pockets from the Salamanders and Iron Hands. It was pretty fucked how many died so quickly. There were even moments where the traitors hesitated before firing on the Vanguard, as they were like, wow, this is so fucked up, what are we doing? They fired anyway. Even at the Siege of Terra, we didn't see this many Astartes fighting, and it remains the largest ever Space Marine battle ever fought, with there being roughly 1.1 million Astartes involved. Alright, let's get away from that yucky Space Marine circle jerk and back to some Xeno and Xeno stuff, my favorite category. Sometimes the two birds with one stone saying can really fucking backfire. Inquisitor Cryptman has found this out the hard way, as after directing High Fleet Leviathan into a massive Orc empire, he never really considered that whoever won would become so powerful that they would emerge as a galactic superpower. Although the Octarius War refers to multiple battles, you could consider the entire war one battle, as the Orcs love fighting all the time, and the Tyranids don't need to rest and resupply. The corpses of the Orcs were providing a fuckload of biomass for the Nids, whilst the corpses of the Orcs and the Nids were creating great places for Orc fungal spores to grow into mature Orcs. Both sides had pretty much unlimited warriors, and were in a constant state of war with thousands dying every minute. There are 1,440 minutes in a day, so every day there were millions of combat deaths. To make it even more hectic, both the Imperium, the Eldar, and Chaos had a vested interest in Octarius, making things even more hectic. Eventually, the Tyranids were able to kill the Overfiend of Octarius, the Orc leader of all the Orc forces, which turned the tide for the Tyranids to achieve victory. It's said that the huge power boost the Tyranids are getting in 10th edition is mostly due to the Octarius War, where the Nids have gained a fuckload of biomass and experience. It's impossible to say the final death count, but with the war raging for a few years, and every day being one continuous battle of titanic proportions, we could easily say the death toll is in the billions if not trillions. Holy shit. In terms of raw combatant count, this is easily the largest engagement in all of 40k. However, it still doesn't quite match the epic proportions of the fall of Cadia. Cadia is a completely militarized fortress world where every man, woman, child is taught how to shoot something in the head. With a population of 850 million people, that's a lot of guys and gals that can ruin your day. So when the full might of the Black Legion and the Iron Warriors, supported by thousands of World Eaters, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and Wordbearers, backed up by millions of demons and countless cultists invaded, you knew we were in for a hell of a treat. Similar to how the orcs and the Tyranids don't really recognize ceasefires and sleep, the demonic onslaught never let up once it had begun. So the entire fall of Cadia was literally one big fuck-off planet-wide battle. To make it even more spicy, the Phalanx, which is the Imperial Fist flagship, arrived to help Cadia alongside Saint Celestine and a bunch of Space Marines taken from a shitload of chapters. Even Trazyn the Infinite got involved, helping Belsarius Cawl to repair the Cadian pylons that, in theory, could close the Eye of Terror and beat Chaos. Trazyn also brought a few Pokeballs that contained Horus Heresy era Space Marines, as well as a Custodian. Abaddon himself even got involved in the battle, fighting Saint Celestine, Inquisitor Greyfax, and Lord Creed himself, getting impaled by Saint Celestine and being forced to withdraw. The pylons were working, Abaddon withdrew, and it seemed as if the Imperium would win, but then Abaddon threw a Blackstone fortress at the world, breaking it and fucking everything. Overall, the majority of the 850 million people died, a fuckload of demons were banished, with a ton of Space Marines meeting their end, although some did end up evacuating. Overall, a planet-wide battle involving a shitload of superpowered forces, including living saints, titans, and demons. It was quite a big affair. A quick honourable mention is the battle for Beta Gammon, the largest Titan-on-Titan conflict ever recorded. However, as this war took place over a few months and had numerous breaks in between the fighting, it doesn't really count, but it is still worth mentioning since over 1,000 Titans threw down during it. And finally, could it be anything else? The Siege of Terra. Surprisingly, the amount of combatants here isn't as high as you'd think. There were only 3 diminished loyalist legions, a handful of Custodes and Sisters of Silence, a small garrison of Titans, and a few million army soldiers and Mechanicum units for the defenders, whilst the traitors only really had the Sons of Horus, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, and Iron Warriors. The majority of the Wordbearers, Night Lords, and Alpha Legion weren't even involved, with most of the Thousand Sons also being dead from the fall of Prospero. However, it was the importance and epicness of the siege, combined with the fact that it was literally non-stop warfare for months, that makes it so epic and large scale. The defenders had years of preparation, led by the greatest siege defense expert in the galaxy and basically limitless fortification. The traitors had endless tides of demons, as Primarch took on Primarch in the most epic duels in 40k history. So whilst the actual combatant count wasn't the highest ever, the sheer epicness and scale of it was. Dudes were sieging a continent-sized planet after all. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. Well, there's not only a bunch of Battle Mace 40 million hentai, but also a bunch of live action nude cosplays. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more large content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.